She moved like a shadow across the cargo bay floor, careful and slow. Aimed the hum of the station low under her bare feet. Their name was Arian, and her people wore layered wraps that shone like riverstone under dim light. Had come to the human relief ship to trade medicine for water filters, and to learn their way of help and hop it, was called Mason, and he worked the night shift. Quiet eyes, steady hands, a patient kind of courage that did not ask to be seen outside the long window turned to the planet. A band of storms rolled like slow animals. Blue lightning pulsed far. Arian kept one hand at her skirt. Not a bright thing, just a woven shield common on her world, and she breathed in and out as if each breath needed permission. Azan saw her small frame, tired shoulders, a careful step that spoke of pain, and he moved to her with open palm. She said little.
Oh.
His voice soft, a low music, and he gave her space to choose. Nodded once, and let him walk beside her to the quiet corner near the water lockers. A place where the ship always smelled clean. There was a tremble in her stance, not fear of him. Fear of the past she carried like a hidden weight kept. One hand down, holding the edge of that skirt, not as vanity, as armor, as memory. It's a promise to herself that no one would lift it without her. Kalsh had heard the old stories. Humans were loud and hungry and fast. She had also heard new stories, humans who bring blankets first, who learn your name. Wait, Mason offered a stool, not a command, a gift.
Oh.
And Arian sat, her eyes on the floor, the lights above them low, and kin to set a kettle on the little coil, and waited for the steam, the sound small and safe, like rain at nightus. They waited. A clatter echoed from the distant aisle. A crate not tied down, a careless noise, and her whole body flinched. Her hand gripped the skirt, the woven strands creaked. She breathed too fast. The air felt thinner. Mason did not reach for her. He reached for the wall panel and dimmed the lights one more notch. He slowed his own breath in and out, in and out like the sea, placed a folded work jacket on the floor between them. Not over her, not on her, between. A line that said he would not cross unless Ascadarian watched him, unsure. The old fear and the new hope in a quiet fight inside her chest spoke at last, voice a husk, words careful and slow. Please do not lift my skirt. Said it like a ritual she needed to complete, an oath she needed to be heard. And the room held the words like a bowl holds. Water Masan bowed his head, not as apology, as agreement, as witness. And his reply was a promise made of simple breath and simple grace. Will Nuth Kettle whispered. The cup warmed his hands. He slid it across the floor. A soft scrape, a simple gift. Irene held the cup and felt the heat soak into her fingers. She let her grip on the skirt loosen, not release, not yet. But a kind of truce told him why she came, the drought on her world, the brine in their wells, the way the sand crept into every hinge and joint, the children coughing at night mass. And listened. He did not hurry the silence. He let it stretch and settle. He let it carry its own weight. Said there was another reason. The wraps and skirts of her people hide not only skin, they hide the healing coils, the surgeons. Fixed beneath the fabric, small crescent scars, thin wires that sing along injured nerves and keep the pain a little softer. Said a patrol years ago had ripped those wraps from a group of refugees for sport. They laughed at the scars, they tugged at the coils. They called it alien weakness, and a child saw, and the child learned the shape of fear. Mason looked at the floor and breathed. The image struck him like cold iron. He felt something inside crack, not a bone, not a shield. A pride he did not know he held, the quiet trust that the universe is kind by default, and he knew that it is people who make it. Kindarian touched the seam at her hip and said in a smaller voice that she was here for filters, but also for repair. One coil had burned out, pain flared when she walked a hot river along her thigh. And the clinic on her world had no parts left. Mason rose not toward her, but toward the parts locker. He keyed in a request and opened the tray coils for human. Nerve braces looked close to what she described, not perfect, but hope. Has a way of learning new Shapesh, spread a clean cloth on the floor, lined up tools, a little solder iron, a loop-light antiseptic wipes, a pair of soft gloves still in paper. He waited. Darian looked at the tools, then at him, then at her own hand still resting on the skirt. She breathed and counted to 10 in her language. The numbers made of river sound and wind sound, and she nodded. "No one lifts anything without my word," she said. He nodded again. "Set the cup aside. Fingers steady now." And she folded the skirt herself to the mid-thigh, not beyond. Just enough to show the small crescent seam and the wire port shaped like a tiny moon mason, knelt at a distance where the loop light still worked. He talked through each step like a teacher in a morning class. He asked before he moved closer. She said yes. He slid closer by one palm width. He asked again. She said yes. Trust made one small brick at a timeth. Burned coil came free after a patient minute, a sound like a soft click, a little smoke. The smell of tin. Arian did not flinch. She watched. She learned, fitted the new coil and tuned the current until the nerve reader glowed. A calm line. He dabbed the skin with cool gel and withdrew the space between them, widened again, offered back to Arian, flexed her leg. Waiting for the old fire, it did not come. There was only a gentle warmth like sun on stone. Her shoulders fell, the kind of release that makes a person taller. She breathed, and a small laugh escaped her. The first sound like light since she stepped aboard. Mason smiled, not wide, not loud, just a yes written on. A humanvspredator looked at the folded jacket between them, a simple border, and she lifted it and placed it over her lap by her own hand. Not because she needed hiding, because she chose comfort. Mason felt the break inside him deepen, and then changed. The crack became a path. It hurt because it mattered. He understood that care is not the absence of power. It is the choice to carry power like a lantern and not like a bladea. Whispered that he had friends in logistics. He could push a request for coils and filters higher in the queue, not a promise, an effort. And he asked if he could learn her word for thank you. Shot him a sound like a hush in a bell, and he spoke it back, clumsy and sincere, and she laughed again. The station seemed to breathe with them. When the watch changed, an officer passed the aisle, saw the tools and the cloth and the two figures, seated with calm faces, and he moved on. Nothing to fix here, something already fixed. Adarian rose, steady now. She tested a longer step, and then a small hop. Her eyes went wide, not with fear, with surprise. She pressed her hand to her heart. The beat there evened out. She gathered the skirt by her own choice, smoothed the fold, and looked at Mason as if he was a door that had opened and found a garden on the other. Sadesh said she would return with her elder and a list of families. The coils could change the way their people walk and sleep. The filters could change the taste of their mornings. She asked if the night shift would be here. Agan Mason said yes. The word was a simple bridge between two shores. Arian took 3 steps, then turned. A thought had landed. She lifted the jacket and set it back on the floor between them. She said the border was still good, not because she feared him, because she honored what it taught. Mosen bowed his head agreement. Again, a ritual that had grown in one small night. As she left, the bay lights flickered and steadied. The storm band below the window broke apart. Morning over the planet spread like a slow wave mass, and cleaned the tools. His hands unhurried. He logged the parts used and wrote a note in clear words. Patient requested autonomy and privacy. All steps performed with consent and distance. Repair successful. Relief observed. Follow-up offer read. Placed the note in the bin, and stood still for a time. Inside him the break had changed shape. Not a wound, a window. It opened onto a truth he wanted to carry for the rest of his day. Help is not performance. Help is quiet help. It's the promise you keep when no one is. Watching Garion reach the docking ring and looked back once, not to ask for rescue, to remember his face, the steady eyes, the patient hand. She felt lighter, not because a skirt stayed down, because a choice stayed hers. In the night that once lived as a chain, now lived as a story she could retell to girls and boys who feared hands in the darks. Would say there is a human on a station who Lestanch would say. There is a human who Wetchy would say. When you say please do not, he says I will not, and he means eaten. The next night she returned with her elder and the first crate of river wrap cloth, soft and strong. A gift Masson held the cloth and smiled. That small yes again be the end of the week. The queue for filters had new codes, and the box of coils had a new label that read, "Shared be the end of the month. Stories from her world told of a night on a human ship." When a girl kept her promise to herself, and a man kept his promise. Tehran, somewhere far below, the storms of the planet broke and drifted apart like old fear finally losing its J-pine. The quiet that followed Aaron and Mason stood at the window and watched the blue light roll in slow breaths. Their hands did not touch, their words did not hurry. Space between them stayed honest and kind, and that was enough. A small human thing and a great